Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today, and thanks for taking the time to join us. Our session today is going to be on UK university fee status and financial planning, a guide for expat parents. We're delighted to have you join us today as we explore the key considerations for families navigating UK university fees and financial planning from abroad. Before we begin, this information, just a disclosure to go through. Firstly, this information is of a general nature only, and it does not take into account your personal objectives, financial situation, or needs. Please do not act based on this information as it may not be suitable for your circumstances. All contents are based on our understanding of legislation in both Australia and the UK as at the 8th of December 25, which is subject to change. The value of your investments can go up and down, as well as you may not get back the full amount you invested. Past performance is no reliable indicator of any future performance. Your pension income could also be affected by the interest rates at the time you take your benefits. Levels, bases, and reliefs from taxation may be subject to change, and their value depends on the individual circumstances of the investor. So let's meet some of our presenters today. So firstly, my name is Rebecca Watson. I'm an Australian financial planner and I work for BDH Sterling out of our Perth office in Western Australia. I'm going to be helping facilitate today's webinar. I'll also be joined by my colleague, Daniel Ash Wentworth. He is also based in the Perth office, and he is a dual qualified planner, both in Australia and the UK. Daniel's been with BDH Sterling for 8 years when he moved from the UK to Australia, and he's got a lot of knowledge around Australian advice and also around the transfer process for expats moving to Australia. We also have Sam Goodwin with us today. So Sam is from UK Studies Option. He's the head of the global engagement. Sam brings extensive experience in international education as an expert in advising students on funding and visa options. With 8 years at the Australian Department of Immigration, Sam is well placed to guide us through the complexities of UK university fee status. Okay, so today's agenda, we've broken it into 3 sections today. Firstly, Sam's going to be sharing some information on the options for study in the UK. It's going to provide you with some understanding around the UK university fee status and how to get you prepared for those events. After Sam's session, you'll hear from Daniel. He'll be providing you with some information around the benefits of prior planning and the value in seeking financial advice. And the third section, we will have a Q&A session where we've allocated some time at the end to answer any questions you may have. So please feel free throughout today's session to add any questions you have in the Q&A box that you should see on your screen. We will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the session, but if we don't get through all of those questions, we will come back to you with specific answers post today's session. So let's go into section 1. It's over to you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and it's great to be joining forces with BDH Sterling with this really important information for parents. I'm going to start off just quickly to talk about UK study options, give you some more background there and what makes us the experts. Why should you listen to me when it comes to fee status? Why should you consider using our service to support your application? So myself and the full team at UK Study Options have all worked in UK higher education. We have over 40 years combined experience in UK universities. The company was founded in 2009, so we have over 15 years supporting expatriate families from all the world, around the world with this really complex issue. As well as our experience, most importantly, we are fully trained on the fee status rules. You can see there a logo from UKISA, and UKISA are the UK Council for International Student Affairs, and they train all of the universities in the UK on how to assess fee status, and we sit alongside the universities in all those training sessions. So with our experience and with our training, we do have a very strong track record of success. 99% of families that we supported in 2025, also in 2024, did achieve a home outcome with their university application on UCAS. We are in the really unique position where with over hundreds of families that we are supporting each year, we can see right across all the different universities in the UK any changes to the trends, the decisions universities are making, policies that they have, the forms that they are asking you to complete, and we can pass that on to you, our current customers, to make sure you have the best chance of success as well. As far as we know, we are the only independent advisors on UK university fee status that offer a service to parents to support them with their application to universities in the UK. And you can see here some logos of our further credentials and our memberships. We are members of COBIS and FOBISIA, which are British International School Associations. We are UCAS International Advisor Network members. We are also International ACAC members, and we work closely with many organisations around the world, such as the British Council, also British embassies and high commissions, to really raise awareness and get the right information to people. So to get started talking about fee status, it is very complex. So I've got a short quiz here, which is a bit mean because I haven't actually told you anything yet about fee status, but this is to really illustrate the fact that there is a lot of myths and misunderstandings out there about home fee eligibility. So it's really important that you can separate the myths from the facts, because otherwise it could really affect your preparation and planning for the application and have a big impact on your chances. You don't want to scupper your chances of home fees because you have misunderstood some crucial element of the rules or how your circumstances fit into those rules. So this is a true or false quiz. We'll have a look at these. Keep track of your answers, and then hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be really clear on what is true and what is false. So number one, living in the UK for 3 years before university guarantees home fees. Is that true or is that false? I'm sure you've heard something about this online, this 3 years living in the UK. Is it true that that guarantees home fees? That's actually false. That's not true. So it is the case that people who are living in the UK may not qualify for home fees. So as well as a residency criteria, there is an immigration criteria to the rule. So perhaps someone is living in the UK, but they're not a British citizen or they don't have the right immigration status. They would be an overseas fee payer. But importantly, a British citizen living in the UK for the full 3 year period before university is not guaranteed home fee status. There are circumstances where their eligibility could be in doubt. There are circumstances where there could be an overseas fee payer, and we'll look at that in the presentation later on. The fee status rules refer to ordinary residents. So you need to show that you are ordinarily resident in the UK, and that is not the same as where you live necessarily. So it is perfectly possible that someone outside of the UK could also manage to get home fees. Number two, if my friend gets home fees at this university, I will definitely get home fees. Is this true or this false? This might be a little bit more easy to guess at this one. This one is also false. That is a very risky assumption to make, and it's so important to plan and prepare for your own application, because every application to universities in the UK is unique when it comes to someone's fee status, because there are so many elements that could impact your chances, including what course you apply to, what university you apply to, whether you're applying to a university in England or Scotland or elsewhere in the UK, plus all those really individual circumstances of your own, such as your nationality and nationalities, where you've been living, your travel back to the UK, your employment, all of those things will play a part in how the universities will assess your case. And these are going to be very different to anyone else's. And we've even seen between siblings in the same family, you could have a very different process, a very different decision from one sibling to the next. Number three, it is possible to get home fees if the student is not a British citizen. What about this one? Do you think that is possible? Is that true? Happily, yes, that is true. That might affect some people who are here today. If the child themselves is not a British citizen, it is still possible to get home fees. The fee status rules have many different categories of home fees, and they cater for many different groups of people. So there could be, you could have a different immigration status and not be a British citizen and still be able to qualify for home fees. It is also the case that someone can get home fees through a family member. So if the child themselves is not a British citizen, but they have a relevant family member who is, that could be a pathway to home fees, and I'll be explaining that later on as well. Number four, it is possible to get home fees if you've never lived in the UK. Is that one true or is that one false? It's very confusing, all this residency criteria. Oops, that one is true. Yes, again, that could be affecting some people, and you shouldn't write your chances off. If you've never lived in the UK, it is still possible to get home fees at universities in the UK. Like I said, you might be showing this ordinary residence. Even though you're not living on a day-to-day basis in the UK, you might be able to show this and get home fees. It is also true that if you have a temporary absence from your home in the UK, you could get home fees. So someone could be living outside of the UK on a temporary basis all their life. That is possible. And universities could assess that they are eligible for home fees. As I said before, there's lots of different categories, and there's also categories of home fees for people who live in specific places other than the UK, such as the Republic of Ireland, such as British Overseas Territories, and also temporarily in Europe. After Brexit, there are still temporary provisions in place for British nationals with an ordinary residence in Europe. And the final question, you must own property in the UK and be on the council tax to be able to get home fees. Again, this is a myth I hear out there quite a lot. A lot of people talking about this. Is it actually true? No, it's not. It's false. So it's not necessary for you to own property. It's not necessary for you to have your name on a council tax bill in the UK. Those are myths. So we're going to look at exactly what the requirements are so you can be really clear on what you do and do not need to show for your application. So let's talk about fee status and what the basics are when it comes to tuition fees at UK universities. So all publicly funded universities in the UK need to distinguish between home fee payers and overseas fee paying students on their courses. And this is because for each home student that enrolls on their course, they are able to claim public funding from the government that helps to subsidise the cost of delivering the course to those students. This means the home tuition fees are capped, currently around £9,500 per year, and it means whatever course, whatever university you apply to as a home student, you won't pay more than that capped amount. However, there's no public funding going towards overseas fee-paying students. So overseas fee-paying students are paying much higher tuition fees. The universities are going to pass on the full cost of delivering the course to those students in the form of tuition fees. And we'll look at what that means in terms of what you'll pay as overseas fee-paying students. So for every application they receive, universities will undertake this fee status assessment to make sure they charge the correct amount of tuition fees. Excuse me. For most people applying to university in the UK, this is done in the background. It's an internal process. You won't even know that it's going on. But if you're applying from outside of the UK, the university is likely to need more information from you. You'll be asked to fill in a complicated questionnaire form. You'll be asked to provide supporting evidence to help the universities make the decision on whether you qualify for home fees or whether you should be charged overseas fees. It is the case that each university in the UK has the full autonomy to make the final decision on the fee status of students on their courses. So with over 150 different universities in the UK, it is the case that some universities are stricter than others. Some make it tougher to get home fees than other universities. So which university in the UK that you apply to is going to play a big part in your own individual chances of whether or not you get home fees for your degree. It is also the case that your fee status can have an impact on the admissions process. So whether you get assessed as a home fee payer or an overseas fee payer could play a part in your chance of even getting an offer on the course. And we'll look at a specific example of that later on as well. So universities are undertaking these fee status assessments and they are using rules set by the UK government. These are under the devolved arrangement. So there are different rules in each of the UK nations. So there are different rules in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. So again, this is very much a complicating factor for those applying out from outside of the UK. So if you apply to a university in England under the English rules, you could be eligible for home fees. But if you apply to a university in Scotland under the different rules in Scotland, you could be an overseas fee payer. Again, this is why it's so crucial to prepare and plan for your own individual application and make sure you understand the rules for the universities that you are actually applying to. The rules are problematic. They are very complex. They are very technical, and there's a lot of grey area in the rules. So there's a lot of area where universities need to make their own judgment, use their discretion, and especially for expatriate families who are often considered to be on the borderline when it comes to whether or not you fit into one of these home fee categories, the outcome can be very unpredictable and also inconsistent. So if you apply to 5 universities with your UCAS application, it could be that some of those universities will decide that you are a home fee payer, and some of those universities will decide that you are an overseas fee paying student. It is perfectly legitimate under this process and under these rules that 2 universities looking at the same case could come to different outcomes when it comes to a student's fee status. So what happens if you don't get assessed as a home fee payer? Well, overseas fee paying students pay much higher tuition fees, anywhere between £36,000 and £423,000 in tuition fees for a UK degree. This is obviously a huge range, and it just reflects the fact that each university is setting their own price for overseas fee paying students on their courses. There is no cap. They can charge exactly whatever they like. As well as these much higher tuition fees, as an overseas fee payer, you are not going to have access to student finance. You can't apply for a student loan from the government to help you with the costs of your fees and your living costs while studying in the UK. These are reserved for home fee payers. So you are going to need to think about alternative funding methods for your study in the UK. There is a wider context to fee status as well, and I'm going to touch on this and give you the headlines because this is an area that is very complex, and I can probably deliver a seminar for hours on this topic as well, because it's not just the rules and your individual circumstances that will play a part in your chance of getting home fees, but all of these external factors that see the universities and the government change and amend their policies and their interpretations of the rules and adjust who might be eligible for home fees year on year. It does mean that, again, that the same university looking at the same case from one year to the next, they might be reaching a different decision because they are changing their policy, they are changing their interpretation of the rules to adapt to the economic and political situation as it stands from year to year. It is very much a political and economic issue. There's been lots of recent announcements and developments this year from the government that could see and could have an impact on fee status and how it's interpreted. We have seen just last week, the government has announced that home tuition fees are going to increase each year. So this is the first time that that's happened. the cap that the government places on what universities can charge has been largely stagnant for about 15 years. It has increased a couple of times, but largely it's remained the same amount for many, many years. This has been a big problem for universities. Obviously, they have not been able to charge more to home students, and they're facing a lot of inflationary pressures, a lot of financial pressure, which means effectively they are making a loss on every single home student that enrolls on their course. This is a big problem for them. And of course, when it comes to borderline cases, expatriate families like yourself, it means that we have seen universities tighten and restrict this, make it harder to get home fees for their individual policies and interpretations of the rules. We have also seen the government has proposed a levy on international university tuition fee revenue. So they are proposing to tax universities on their revenue from international students. They have announced a consultation on this. The proposal is that they will charge universities £925 for every international student they have on their course. So this, of course, is again going to be a problem for universities. We could see overseas fees jump very rapidly to accommodate this new tax the universities will place on the government will place on universities and their fee revenue. So what we do know is that tuition fees are going to rise. They are definitely going to rise for home students. The first time we can ever say that. We know year on year they are going to be higher. We do also know that overseas fees are likely to be rising as well. So really crucial to prepare and plan. That's why we work with companies such as BDH Sterling to make sure you're in the very best position to be able to handle the costs of studying in the UK. But what it also means is that it's so crucial to prepare and plan before the university application because you cannot control these external factors. So you want to have the very best chance of success when it comes to getting home fees, getting those lower fees. And you need to do that through preparation and planning before the application. It's really crucial. So let's look at some illustrative examples of the difference between a home fee payer and overseas fee paying student on a UK degree. And I've got some examples here. Don't read too much into the individual universities. These are just random selection to give you an illustration. And the first example is economics degree at LSE, London School of Economics, very popular, very prestigious school. You can see on the left-hand side for home students, the fees are £9,790. Now, this is the rate for 2026. It's just been announced last week in the autumn budget from the government. It has increased. So students starting this year in 2025 were paying £9,535. Next year, it is going up, as I said, the new announcement from the government. But you can see it's much lower than what you'd pay as an overseas fee-paying student. In 2026 entry, you'll be paying £39,900 per year to do the economics degree at LSE. Of course, we also know that those overseas fees do rise each year with inflation. There's no cap on that, so universities have always been increasing those fees each year. Next example is at Cardiff University. So we're now in Wales. It's a different set of rules in Wales. If you want to do engineering at Cardiff, you can see the home fees, however, it's still the same, £9,790 per year. That's the capped amount for next year from the government. So as a home student, you won't pay that more than that amount. But again, overseas fees much higher, over £30,000 per year to do engineering at Cardiff. Next example, hold on to your hats for this one. Medicine at Cambridge. Again, home fees, still £9,790. Even doing subjects such as medicine, that's a capped amount from the government. But you can see on the right-hand side, much, much higher for overseas fee-paying students. Over £70,000 per year is what you'll pay as an overseas fee payer. Just a quick tip. When applying to medical degrees in the UK, do check the duration of the course. Some medical degrees are 5 years in length. At Cambridge, it's actually a 6-year course. So really important to understand how many years you are going to be paying tuition fees for. Again, a quick insight into Cambridge. They have a very unique policy where, in addition to tuition fees, if you get assessed as an overseas fee payer, you'll be charged college fees. These are not charged to home students, just to overseas fee paying students. But if you get assessed as an overseas fee paying student on any course at Cambridge, you'll be paying college fees, currently around 13 to 14,000 pounds per year. So again, really important to keep that in mind if you're looking to apply to Cambridge. Again, really crucial to make sure you're in the best position to be considered for home fees and avoid those much higher costs of study at Cambridge. Fine example is a music degree at Edinburgh. Actually, you can see on the left-hand side, there's two rates of fees for home students. In Scotland, they still have free tuition for Scottish home students. So the most you'll pay as a Scottish student going to a university in Scotland is £1,820 per year. And they also have a middle rate of fees. It's called RUK, Rest of UK. So if you're from England, Wales, or Northern Ireland, you'll pay £9,790. So the equivalent of home fees in England. But again, this is much lower than what you'll pay as an overseas fee paying student, over £38,000 per year to do music at Edinburgh. Again, another quick tip, do check the course duration if you're applying to a university in Scotland. Some undergraduate degrees in Scotland can be 4 years in length, so really important not to get caught out for budgeting purposes there. But let's look now at home fee eligibility and what the rules actually say when it comes to being eligible for home fees. I would point out here that there are many different categories, as I said before, so we are looking specifically at one category here. If you're not eligible in this category, it could be that you are eligible under a different category of the rules, so do make sure you look into that, get in touch with us if you think that might be the case. But this is the category that is most relevant to British expatriate families. Also, Irish families living outside of the UK would be on the same basis as well. So there are a few requirements that you need to meet. Firstly, you must be settled in the UK when you start your university degree. Additionally, you must be ordinarily resident in the UK for that full 3-year period before you start university. Or if you're not ordinarily resident in the UK, the rules have provisions to say that you still get home fees if you are temporarily absent from the UK for specific temporary employment. So if we look at some of those key terms in more detail, settled, what does settled mean? It means both ordinarily resident and having no restriction on the length of stay in the UK. So we're going to look at ordinary residence next, but essentially this is the immigration part of the requirements. So if you are a British citizen, if you are a citizen of the Republic of Ireland, you can always enter and stay in the UK as long as you like. So you potentially have the ability to show that you are settled as well. But there are wider groups that could meet this requirement. If you have indefinite leave to remain in the UK, if you have right of abode in the UK, if you have settled status under the EU settlement scheme, similarly, you have no restriction on the length of stay in the UK, and potentially you could be settled there as well. Again, here, this requirement is not necessary to meet if you have a relevant family member. So if you remember from the quiz, if the child themselves is not a British citizen, but they have a relevant family member who can tick this box for them, then they do have a pathway to home fees. Now, a relevant family member is specifically a spouse, a parent, or a grandparent. So if the child has a parent or a step parent that is a British citizen or otherwise can show this settled status, then potentially they can get home fees when they study in the UK at university. But they and everyone needs to meet this next requirement, which is the ordinary residence requirement. And this is a tricky one because there is actually no definition of ordinary residence under the rules. So this is an area where universities need to make their own judgment and use their discretion. Many will have their own specific policy on how they are going to assess ordinary residents. but an accepted legal definition of ordinary residence is having a regular habitual mode of life in a particular place for a settled purpose. And under the fee status rules, this is always assessed over that 3-year period before the start of the university course. So you don't need to be living in the UK, but you do need to demonstrate to universities that you have this regular habitual life for them to be able to justify giving you home fees on this basis. But we also know that if you can't show ordinary residence, you still get home fees if you are temporarily absent. So if you are temporarily working abroad, you will be treated as though you are ordinarily resident in the UK. And this can often be a pathway for many expatriate families living outside of the UK. If you have been posted or seconded or assigned by your employer to work at their office abroad, or otherwise, if your employment is on a fixed term or you have an end date, it's project based, these might be useful things that you can show to the university as reasons why you should be considered for home fees. There's one final part of the rules that I wanted to make you aware of because this could affect some people's ability to get home fees, and it's called the main purpose test. This particularly affects families that has a child in boarding school in the UK and the parents are living outside of the UK. The main purpose test says that the main purpose for residents in the UK must not have been to receive full-time education. If that's the case, then that actual residence in the UK does not count towards getting home fees at university. So for children at boarding school, universities will apply this main purpose test. The legal precedent is that a child, a minor, someone under 18 is not independent of their parents. So as your dependents, the child's residency status would remain linked to where the parents are living outside of the UK. So this is very much a complicating factor for people in this circumstance. It does mean that boarding school is not a solution to the home fee problem. A child who has been living in the UK for many years is not guaranteed of getting home fees because of this main purpose test. You will still need to plan and prepare for the application and be ready to show that as a family you continue to have this ordinary residence in the UK, or otherwise that you're temporarily absent from the UK for specific employment. There's a quote here from UKISA. If you remember UKISA, they train all of the universities on how to assess fee status, and in their guidance they say that you, as in the student, might have to persuade an institution that you meet this requirement. And this is important because UKISA are acknowledging here that universities have a really difficult job to interpret these very complex rules and apply them to everyone's individual circumstances. So they are not going to be able to, you can't assume that they are going to be able to identify you as a home fee payer. You are going to need to understand the rules, what category of the rules you might fit into, because you might need to persuade or convince up to 5 different universities that you should be getting the lower home fees. So how can you prepare? What are some top tips for you in Australia to get home fees when you apply to university in the UK? So number one, consider your eligibility as early as possible. This is so crucial. It is really important that you plan and prepare ahead of the university application. You don't want to leave it until you're applying on UCAS, or even worse, when they start asking you questions or ask you to provide evidence of your eligibility. You will need to explain your circumstances for that full 3 years before university. So ideally you want to be looking at this at least 3 or 4 years before the start of the university course. It is important to maintain an ordinary residence for that full 3-year period before university in the UK. So what does that mean in practical terms? Universities are going to be checking to see that you have a UK home base address. They want to see that you have a family home that is available and accessible for you to use for this regular, habitual, everyday life that you need to show. Additionally, they are going to be asking you about your travel pattern. They are wanting to see that you're making regular trips back each year that reflects it's your ordinary home and that you go back there often enough and for long enough to have this day-to-day habitual life there. Additionally, you want to keep your absence as temporary as possible, especially when it comes to employment. If you have a fixed term contract, if it's project based, these could be useful things for you to show to the university to show that you haven't migrated and cut all your ties from the UK, you haven't migrated permanently. So all of these things are really important, especially if you are in Australia. So if you're in Australia, again, it's not easy to travel back to the UK. The school terms, the school holidays are not aligned with the Northern Hemisphere school terms. So again, this is something you might need to really prepare very early. So you want to be doing this as early as possible. You don't want to be leaving it to the last couple of years before you start university, because it is really important to build your case and gather evidence. It's a really subjective and discretionary decision that universities are going to be making. So you don't want to just have one single thing that you are relying on as the reason why you should get home fees, one piece of evidence. You want to build and strengthen your case. This is what we do when we work with families to make it as watertight as possible to withstand the scrutiny, whatever university you choose to apply to. Remember that what might work at one university might not work at another university. The evidence one university could be asking you for could be different to the evidence another university asks you for. They are going to be asking to see evidence of all those things we just discussed, your home address in the UK, your travel back to the UK. A lot of universities ask you for 10 years of travel history. So really important to prepare early and build that evidence as you go. Do remember that you can appeal against an overseas offer. No one else is going to do this for you. There's no oversight. There's no one checking the decisions that universities are making in this regard. So if you get assessed as an overseas fee payer and you believe you are eligible for home fees, it's up to you to access the internal appeals process that every university has. But of course, if you're asking them to overturn their decision, you'll need evidence to back up your case. And you want to be doing this as early as possible before you accept the offer, before you start your course. Really crucial. And finally, get personalized specialist advice. This, of course, is where we can help to make sure that you don't overlook any eligibility for yourselves, that you can understand if you could be eligible for those lower home fees when you apply. There's a lot of hidden eligibility out there that you might not be aware of, over 40 categories, and understanding how you fit into all those categories. A good example is the temporary rules after Brexit. So we help many families all around the world in different places of the world to show how they should get home fees because of their connection and ordinary residence in a European country rather than the UK. You don't need to have even set foot in the UK. You could be eligible for home fees if you can show that ordinary residence in a country like France or Germany or Spain. These are options that can be available. There's very technical requirements around that. So you need to check into that. But until 2027, these rules are in place. And it might be if you're dual nationals, if you have one parent who is from Europe, that you can show that in a European country instead. So we have a number of support services for parents to understand their eligibility. It starts with our fee status checker, really simple online tool on our website. You can do it in under 30 seconds, enter your details, answer a few yes or no questions, and you'll get an automated email with a summary of your potential eligibility, lots of useful links and resources, recommendations for your own circumstances. This could include moving on to step 2, which is a fee status appraisal. This is where we will undertake a fee status assessment. So exactly the same as what the universities do when you apply. We will do that check, give you a detailed report of what we think of your chances, whether you have a case for home fees, what category of the rules you might fit under, what we think your chances might be when you apply, some tips and recommendations. And if we do think you have a legitimate case for home fees, we will invite you to book in with our comprehensive fee status support service. And this is all about maximizing your chances of getting home fees when you apply. It's unlimited comprehensive support, and we know this could save you thousands or even hundreds of thousands of pounds in tuition fees. If you've got a budding medic in your family, if you've got more than one child looking to apply to university in the UK, we know the difference between home fees and overseas fees can be in the hundreds of thousands of pounds. Not only that, you'll gain that peace of mind and reduce stress at that all-important exam period. We know a well-prepared, well-argued case for home fees can speed up offers from universities, and you can just concentrate on getting the best results in the exams and picking the best offer for you. The price for our service is £6,200. This is a one-time, one-off fee for our full unlimited support from the moment you engage us. We want to work with you well before the application so we can help you prepare. Ideally 3 or 4 years, you can get the benefit from our advice and support for all of that time. We do have a payment plan if you start with us early enough, so you can pay that fee in installments as well. And our service includes that all-important preparation and planning before the application. We'll go through a document checklist. You can understand exactly what evidence you'll need to provide. We'll have an action plan of steps to take before you apply so you can have the strongest possible application. You'll also benefit from our insight and experience in all those different universities so you can understand your chances at your target university, maybe even shape that final list of 5 choices. Of course, once you submit the application, we're on hand to do everything with you. Those complicated fee status questionnaires, answering all the questions, providing evidence, even writing appeals statements as well, if needed. That QR code will take you to our website. That's a great place to start. There's loads more information on our website as well. Informative blog articles. We've got explainer videos. I would recommend you check out our Google reviews, see what our customers have been saying about our service as well. But that's the end of my presentation. Hold on to your questions. Like Rebecca said, pop them in the Q&A chat. I'm sure you've got lots of questions about home fees, but for now, I'm going to pass you on to Daniel to talk about financial planning, the other really crucial part of planning for university.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. It's good to go through. So as Sam has mentioned here, we're just going to touch upon how we can potentially assist and how financial planning can assist with regards to expat families and planning for the UK university fees, etc. So the first part, we just wanted to, highlight the value advice. And so as financial advisors, we can assist with clarifying your goals and priorities, whether that's funding university fees, planning for retirement, or simply ensuring financial stability in your working life, but also into your retirement phase as well. Hopefully then we can create with the guidance we can provide and also the bespoke plan tailored to your unique circumstances, we can make sure that this plan is important to you and your family and not just a one-size-fits-all approach with respect to that plan. Hopefully as well, the advice will give you confidence that what you're doing is robust and is adaptable to changes that could happen from the point of creating that plan to execution, because we appreciate there's going to be numerous things that are going to pop up, whether that's being eligible for home fees or overseas fees, and how do we assist you as individuals and your family adapt to those situations that may arise. One of the services and areas that we can potentially assist with is cash flow planning. So this is very much a cornerstone of financial planning. It allows us to look at your income and expenditure and analyze, how can we plan for future commitments such as university fees, living costs, and retirement plans, and what are those goals around how much you're going to require to live on when you do come to that next stage of life. But understanding your cash flow and being able to prioritize that spending, identify any potential shortfalls now and in the future, and make informed decisions around your savings and investments, so that we can ensure that there is going to be the appropriate amount of funds available when it does come to paying for said university fees or other known expenses in the future. Particularly, we find for expat families, cash flow planning is essential. It's going to help you manage things like currency fluctuations, cross-border expenses, travel, but also changing circumstances in the countries that you may be holding assets in or potentially looking to spend time in. Sorry, next slide. So it's not just looking at the cash flow for yourselves now, but also looking at forecasting that and looking ahead. So we use the same process for looking at cash flow now as we would do for forecasting ahead. And we can also apply what we call what-if scenarios. So looking at what happens if your university fees are eligible to be home fees, or whether it's the overseas fees that Sam's discussed today, or if your investments see a lower return than what you're expected, or your employment earnings may change. All those what-if scenarios are things we can review and look at what are going to be the positive and negative impacts of those, and how do we then plan for those accordingly now. And I guess that's probably the common theme throughout today's webinar so far. It's trying to plan ahead as soon as possible. These scenario testing as well allow us to test the impact of inflation. I mentioned changes in income, but also unexpected expenses. Again, that's going to be closely linked to whether you're going to be eligible for overseas fees with regards to UK universities, compared to being eligible for those home fees. And then finally, regularly reviewing these forecasts can also allow us to adapt them as your circumstances may change, but also adapt them as legislative changes could arise that could impact what the original strategy was. So that's why it's not just important to look at putting this initial plan in place, but also regularly reviewing that over a much more longer term period. Another element would be looking at retirement income planning. So identifying where is your income going to come from, and what those sources look like. Is it going to be pensions or superannuation, or is this going to include other investments, property, for instance, or any other sources you may have? It's also around looking at how can we make this income strategy flexible for you in retirement as well, and coupling that with trying to minimize tax. So for instance, superannuation here in Australia is going to be a tax-free source of income. If we can maximize how much you've got in that source, it's going to improve the tax efficiency for your income in retirement. Then we potentially couple that with other income sources and manage that across your marginal tax rates. And that goes into my next point around the different income sourcing having different tax liabilities. And that's why it's important to plan around, structuring the different sources you do have so that you're making sure you're taking advantage of those tax benefits that come from those different sources as well, to maximize the net income you're going to receive throughout your retirement. For expats in particular, and any Australians that have spent time in the UK and then moved back to Australia, another option for the retirement income planning could be exploring pension transfers of their UK pensions to Australia, and looking at what additional benefits that this could offer, which I'll touch upon more on the next slide. This area is certainly one of BDH Sterling's niche components, and very much our staple of our service delivery is exploring can your UK pensions be transferred across to Australia now that you've made Australia home as such. So the first part is understanding if you can in fact transfer your pension across to Australia. So first things first are the ones that we're unable to transfer. So the UK state pension, for instance, is unable to be transferred, but you can still receive the income here in Australia. You can't transfer unfunded public sector defined benefit schemes, such as the NHS pension or an army pension, for instance. Those schemes are unable to be transferred across to Australia, but again, you can receive the income payable to yourselves here in Australia. Then you have company pensions that are now in the Pension Protection Fund, or the PPF, it's otherwise known. These, again, cannot be transferred across. So all these types of pensions are unable to be transferred across to Australia. However, there are pensions such as private pensions or company pensions that can be explored as a transfer, but would need to be done via a QROPS, which stands for a Qualifying Recognised Overseas Pension Scheme. So this could be a suitable scheme to explore receiving your UK pension if that was something that potentially would be in the best interest for yourself. And that's where our advice would come in assistance. Now, the reasons why you might consider transferring these company and private pensions across to Australia would include there might be tax efficiencies. So as I've mentioned on the previous slide, your superannuation funds here in Australia pay out an income in a tax-free environment. So it might be that bringing your UK pensions into that environment creates a lot more tax efficiency when it comes to your retirement income. Again, this will be reviewed on an individual by individual basis. It also would remove, transferring those UK pensions could remove ongoing currency risk. Yes, there would still be currency risk on any transfer, but once you've completed that, the ongoing currency risk would be removed longer term. There's also potential estate planning and legacy benefits. So in the UK, from 2027, April 2027, UK pensions will fall under UK inheritance tax rules. So that may mean that there's an estate planning benefit of moving those funds outside of your UK pensions and across to an overseas asset, which may enable those monies to be passed on to your beneficiaries without any inheritance tax. Again, that would need to be reviewed. And it also, this links to the next point, but it's moving away from these UK rules and taxation charges like the inheritance tax I've just mentioned there. And another rule that we need to be mindful of is that as of April 2028, the earliest age in which you can access your UK pension, whether that be a company or private pension, would move from 55 to 57. And if you were to look at transferring your UK pensions between now and then, you could potentially avoid these changes that are on the horizon and coming in. And then finally, we've said there as well, having the money here in Australia may bring you more control over the investments and allow you to have more input, or engage an advisor like ourselves to tailor an investment strategy that might align more to your goals and objectives, rather than just being subject to the default approach of your existing UK pension provider.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Sam. So I'm just going to cover the next section, just around a little bit more about BDH Sterling. 1 second, sorry. So why would you choose BDH Sterling? So as Daniel's just mentioned, we do the cross-border work for a lot of clients, so we understand the challenges of moving between two countries. We're a chartered firm in the UK with dual licensed advisors in both the countries, both Australia and the UK, and we are UK pension transfer specialists with over 16 years experience. We do all of our advice in-house, so we don't outsource any of our advice for both the UK and Australia through our offices in the UK and across Australia. We've got offices in Australia in Perth, Melbourne and Sydney at the moment, and in the UK as well. So we're really looking at working with our clients, building relationships and making sure you can meet your objectives. So as Sam mentioned before, being able to fund and pay for, university fees is a very important thing for a lot of parents and families to make sure that those objectives can be met. So we work really closely with our clients to ensure that we've got your objectives outlined clearly, and we can, do the cash flow modelling that Daniel mentioned before to look at any what-if scenarios to make sure that they can be met and that the kids can still go and do their studies. We are highly rated on Google and Trustpilot, so you're welcome to have a look on there and have a look at what other clients have said about us. And we are able to provide advice on other financial services, such as Australian superannuation. we do have a sister company called BDH Tax, who do cross-border tax work as well. So they can give tax advice in the UK and in Australia. And we also do a lot of retirement planning for our clients as well. If that's relevant for you, like Daniel mentioned before, we can assess pensions in the UK, whether you're living in the UK or Australia or going between two. We can look at some retirement planning and overlay those what-if scenarios again. If you wanted to chat to a financial advisor, you can put your details in the Q&A box if you like, or the email address is on this screen now. Just pop in there a little bit of what you're looking for so we can make sure we address that. We can give you a call or we can talk to you on the phone to discuss any advice or any questions that you might be looking to obtain from us. Okay, so we are now at the time of our segment to talk about the Q&A and just answer any questions that you have put in the box. There is some time if you do want to put in a couple of extra questions, but I have got a few that we'll just go through quickly. We've got a couple of minutes, so I won't be able to get through many. But any questions I don't answer now or we don't get to, we will respond post today's meeting and get back to you on those to make sure we've gone across that. Okay, so this question is probably for Sam. So this one is in regarding to dual citizenship. So how will being a dual citizen affect my application?
Yeah, that's a good question. It possibly could affect many people who have moved to Australia because many people are able to, follow that pathway to permanent residency and also citizenship. And it's still possible to get home fees in the UK, even if you have taken up dual citizenship in Australia. The fee status rules, the legal precedent when it comes to ordinary residence says that you can be ordinarily resident in more than one place at the same time. So it's perfectly possible that even if you're settled in Australia and that's a permanent home for you, you could still argue that you continue to have an ordinary residence in the UK, and that's also an ordinary permanent home for yourself as well. So we've got lots of experience in presenting that argument to universities, showing how that is possible and how that applies to you. But of course, dual nationality could affect your case more importantly, if you are saying, well, I'm temporarily absent. The only reason I'm in Australia is to do this specific work, so I should get home fees based on my employment. If that's the case, then it might be harder for you to argue that if you have taken up citizenship in Australia. Universities may not be accepting that it's a temporary place of residence for you because you're a citizen. So it could affect people's cases in different ways.
Well, thank you, Sam. We've got another one here. What if your kids were born in the UK, did their primary schooling there, now live in the UK, and have always had a British citizenship and Australian by descent?
So yes, so the important, the really crucial part of that is having British citizenship because that means that they can show that settled. So they have that immigration bit. So if they additionally have Australian citizenship or permanent residency, then that doesn't affect basic eligibility, but it could be a factor in how universities look at your case, depending on your other circumstances. If they live in Australia, then their fee status will be uncertain. It will be in doubt as to whether or not they are eligible for home fees because although they tick the box because they got British citizenship, they also need to show the ordinary residence for that full 3-year period before starting university. Or if you can show that the only reason you're living in Australia is temporarily because you have to do a specific piece of employment. So if you can say, I'm here in Australia because my job's here, I have to be here to do this job. Once I finish this job, I'm going to be moving back to my ordinary home in the UK. So that's the two pathways to get home fees. So you would need to either show the temporary employment, or you need to make sure you're really well prepared and you're maintaining this ordinary residence by showing that you have a home address that you can point to in the UK. You're traveling back there frequently. It's still an ordinary home for yourselves as well. So still very possible to get home fees, but it's going to be a very subjective assessment the universities are making. So you are going to need to make sure that you have the strongest possible argument when you do apply.
Thank you. Probably got time for one more quick one. Which one do I choose? Okay, so is the process the same for mature students as it is for school leavers?
Yeah, it's the process could be a slightly different. The rules are exactly the same. So, yes, a mature student has to show exactly the same as what a school leaver would need to show. So it's still the same requirement, the ordinary residence or the temporary absence. Of course, if you're a mature student, then it's much more likely that the parent's circumstances may not be a consideration for universities. Of course, when you're a school leaver, you are going to be under 18 for most of that 3-year period that universities are assessing circumstances. So it's kind of like a family eligibility requirement. You've got a child who is not independent. So the universities won't treat them as an independent person. They're linked to their parents. So they look at the family eligibility requirement. So when it comes to employment as a reason for being outside of the UK, the parent's employment will be considered there. So a mature student, they won't have that same link to the parents necessarily. So they probably will make the assessment based purely on your own circumstances. And there could be advantages and drawbacks to that as well. So yes, still the same rules. How your case might be assessed might be slightly different. So best to get personal advice on that.
Thank you. Okay, so that's probably all we've got time for today with the Q&A. But like I said, please reach out if you've got any questions and we can come back to you on that. Okay, so if there's anything you want to discuss after this session, like I said, you can contact BDH Sterling on the details on the screen at the moment, or you can reach out through the QR code that Sam had brought up before. A copy of all of the slides and the presentation will be emailed out to you shortly. In closing, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us and taking the time out of your day. Behalf of Sam, Dan, and the entire team, we do really appreciate your participation. We hope that it was useful to you all. And like I said, you'll get a recording soon. And please reach out if you have any questions or anything at all. We're more than happy to discuss anything. So thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Right.